Welcome to the Fantasy NASCAR podcast, brought to you by RaceForThePrize.com. Get your July Fantasy NASCAR spreadsheets to help you with DraftKings, PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, a bunch of races coming up to help you with your in-season challenge. If you go ahead and buy July, I'll throw in this week's Lime Rock and Atlanta Super Speedways. On your screen is a simplified version of the many tabs in the spreadsheet. Now, why am I using a simplified version of basically just Super Speedway results? Atlanta as a Super Speedway, and then Talladega and Daytona going back for nearly ever. The reason is because what we're going to do today is make some first round in-season challenge predictions. We're not going to do the whole bracket because if we do the whole bracket, then we have to go into the road races. We'll save that for later this week, hopefully. But today we'll just mainly make some first round picks, consider bets that you might want to make in matchups for round one, but also just help you build your brackets. So I played around and I want to do a man versus a machine challenge. I'm going to make my picks and then also see what does the AI think will be the result of each matchup. So I played around with a bunch of different data sets and it got really kind of goofy and I just was not impressed by the results and the analysis that AI was giving me. Sometimes I gave it really advanced data, simple data, and then it would just get hung up on certain statistics. And then you'd say, well, this is a volatile race. So then it would pick nothing but underdogs. And then I would ask it, no, you can't just, the data is still what it is. Denny Hamlin's still a good super speedway driver. Then it would pick all chalk. And the stats that it would get hung up on, I wasn't really that impressed with. It was like, oh, well, the average finishing position. Yeah, well, average finishing position, I would tell AI, it's kind of not the best stat because, again, it's volatile. So in the end, I decided here are just the straight results. When you make your picks and analysis, look what they have done. Look at their pure traditional numbers. If you disagree with that, that's fine. You can punch your data in from the spreadsheet to AI and do your own analysis, but I'll just warn you that I didn't have the greatest experience, at least did not really like what it was spitting out. Maybe it's my fault. Maybe the way that I go into predicting super speedway races is wrong and that the AI ultimately knows. Either way, let's do it. Let's go through round one of your in-season challenge, and then I'll make my pick, and we'll look at what the AI says. So the number one matchup we got is Denny Hamlin versus Ty Dillon on the NASCAR page. If you're there, you can see 1 seed versus 32 seed. If you're not completely sure about how the scoring works, if you pick the winner in round one, you get 10 points. The next round, it gets intensified. So when we're at the road course, if you pick the winner in matchup 17, you get 20 points for picking the right winner. But also when you pick a winner, if you pick the underdog, you get the 10 points, but also you get the difference of their seeding. So if you pick Ty Dillon and he wins, you get 10 points. But you also get 31 points when you subtract the 32 seed minus the 1 seed. So ultimately, if you pick Ty Dillon and you're trying to win this challenge, and Ty Dillon wins in the first round, you're going to get yourself 41 points total. That's how that works. If you're also looking at the screen, not just listening on, I don't even think I record an audio version anymore. If you're looking at the screen, you'll see Ty Dillon plus 101, Hamlin plus 19. Kind of strange that they decided to put this information in this format. But what this really is that Denny Hamlin is plus 1,900. Ty Dillon is plus 10,100 to win the race. Not to win the matchup, to win the race. But NASCAR decided to go with a simplified version, so they put plus 101, mainly meaning if you bet $1, you win $101, or that Ty Dillon is a 100 to 1, has 100 to 1 odds. Denny Hamlin, his chances to win are 19 to 1. So that's what that number is. Might confuse some people because it's in a different format than you normally see at DraftKings. And typically when these numbers are listed this way, they don't have the plus. They would just say 100 to 1, 19 to 1, not plus 19 plus 101, but that's what it is. So they kind of made it confusing by merging two types of gambling odds. Oh, there it is. So Ty Dillon to win the race, not the matchup, is 100 to 1, Hamlin 19 to 1. So clearly we know that Hamlin's a favorite to win, but that's not what we're doing here. We're trying to pick the best matchup. I know that some will feel compelled to try to go with Ty Dillon because anyone can wreck, but in the end, I'll just play it chalky, and I will take Denny Hamlin. Sorry, that's boring. What does the computer say? And I've gotten, again, if you have access to the Fantasy NASCAR spreadsheet, you can watch all the different inputs and ways that I went with AI to try to go back and forth with it. And a lot of times it was picking Ty Dillon, but I did not necessarily like the data that it was leaning on or its interpretation of the data. Like, oh, well, Denny Hamlin wrecks out 31% of the time, so Ty Dillon has a chance. And then I would tell the AI, well, 31% wrecking at super speedways is actually good. And its response is, oh, yeah, my bad. Like, come on, look at the data. What are we doing? So just again, another one of the complexities and issues that we run into with using artificial intelligence. It's great, but it's not there yet, and it will be a while as we work with it. Anyway, let's see what the final analysis. Hamlin minus 220, Dillon plus 160 in this matchup. And it's going Hamlin. Hamlin Super Speedway stats are elite with 4 wins, 13 top 5s, and 18 top 10s across 45 races. Alongside a 40% top 10 rate, Ty Dillon has no wins, only 2 top 5s, and a 32% non-top 20 finish rate, making Hamlin's consistency a safer bet despite the favorite odds. All right, so we're in agreement with Hamlin. We're not going to chase Ty Dillon at plus 160. And one of the things, if you followed me on Twitter, you may have noticed is that these numbers have been all over the place. Hamlin was as high as plus 330 at one point, or minus 330. Dillon, I think, was almost up to plus 200. It's pretty interesting watching the swings, the volatility of these markets in the matchups. So keep your eye on that. You may be able to get an underdog that you really like with a very good payout if you're paying attention, determining on, depending on where money is going. And I mean, honestly, Denny Hamlin minus 220, I don't even know if this is still the number. That's a bit of a steal, although I wouldn't make that bet at a super speedway. Someone obviously is making these bets because the markets are shifting and moving. Anyway, we agree on Hamlin. Number 2 on their screen is Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, who will match up against Hamlin. This is a toss-up for me. You can see both have very similar odds to win the race. Let's look at a little bit of the data. Actually, it's not, because I know Kyle Busch has been running really well for whatever reason at Atlanta. I get it. Some of you say, well, that doesn't mean anything. Well, what does mean anything? He's been running really poorly at Talladega, and you can see it consistently happen. But he is getting solid results at Atlanta for whatever reason. Maybe Atlanta is a little bit different. Maybe it's not. You're going to have to pick whatever stats that you want to lean on. Both have the same amount of experience over the years. Cars are going to be pretty much equal. That's not really going to matter at this super speedway. Whatever data point you want to lean on. Maybe you go in the contrarian, which I don't think is necessarily contrarian. Oh, well, if he's running well, then he's due for a bad race. And if he's running poorly, then he's due for a good race. And if you were playing that game, you wouldn't have taken Kyle Busch in the spring, and then he burned you. Or if you were playing that game, like, oh, he's going to turn it around. He didn't turn it around in the 2025 spring Talladega race. It's up to you. It's super speedway racing. It is very random. It's very much guessing. That's what makes this in-season challenge so weird, is that the first round is a super speedway, pretty much negating or minimizing or undermining the seeding completely, which doesn't really matter because the way they determined the seeding wasn't really that great to begin with. And then the next round, we got road races. It is a way to spice up the summer. I'm excited about it, but I do anticipate this thing not necessarily being as exciting, but maybe it's going to be better for the normies to have a super speedway and a road course, to mix it up, spice it up, make it less predictable if we were just doing ovals and short tracks. Anyway, I'm going Kyle Busch based on previous Atlanta. And so let's see, I got to scroll down and find Busch because this is sorted a little bit different than what the screen has. And it's going Kyle Busch as well. Busch won Super Speedway win, 8 top 5s, 38% top 10 rate, slightly outpaces Keselowski's 4 wins, 36 top 10 rate. But Busch's recent Atlanta finishes are stronger. The near even odds favor Busch's consistency. So it's leaning on what I'm leaning on, which is Atlanta of recent. And again, the data that we're using is 2022-25, your new Atlanta stats. For Talladega, we're going all the way back to 2015 fall, which is the beginning, the dawn of DraftKings Fantasy NASCAR, and then Daytona, also going back to 2016 spring. We do not have the 2015 one fall, which was a DraftKings race, but if you remember 2015 Daytona, DraftKings, if you're that old like me, been writing at DraftKings for that long and recording podcasts for that long or playing for that long, that was a 5-driver system, different pricing. So we often don't really look at the 2015 fall race that Dale Jr. won, which I was in attendance of. Pretty fun. Late night win. Austin Dillon flying into the grandstands. So that's all the data that we're looking at. So when we look at these numbers and you say, oh, he's won more races than that, or he's been in more races than that, that's true because we're not looking at anything before 2015, really 2016. Back to our challenge. Bowman, Logano. Bowman is a bit more of a long shot. We know Logano has a storied super speedway history. Bowman, I believe, has been much more consistent of late than you would actually think. He's got a higher seed, but again, the seeding really doesn't matter much. Let's look specifically at what they've done at Atlanta, although this may not be the best way. Okay, so his Atlanta, not been great. Not been great. Why is this Byron column? I really need to fix this, but it's annoying me a little bit. And, I'm probably just going to go with the hometown narrative of Joey Logano, which is maybe one of the strongest narratives ever. This is literally his home track. When his family decided, Joey, we want you to be a professional racer, but I'm 7 years old. Well, he probably was very happy about that, by the way. I would be. But then again, when I was 7 years old, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And being 41 years old, there's a lot of times I still don't know what I want to do with my life. Well, Joey Logano knew, and I guess he got it right. They moved to a condo at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Now, it's no longer the same Atlanta Motor Speedway, but sure, he feels comfortable here. Now, his wins probably have nothing to do with him growing up in a condo or him feeling comfortable at Atlanta. It's probably more likely that he's just a decent, very, very good super speedway racer. Anyway, you dice it. He has been solid at Atlanta. Don't think, at least the new Atlanta. Now, again, it was hard to be good at the old Atlanta because Kevin Harvick always won. Specific drivers really dominated that old, worn out, delicious racetrack that we all love and miss, although the new Atlanta is growing on everyone. And so we won in 2023, won in 2024. Logano's going to be my guy, I would imagine, since I really handcuffed the AI and made it stick to this specific data set, not really go narrative. It's probably not going to mention home tracks. It's going to go Logano. But we'll see. I'm going Logano. Where will it go? I'm going to scroll up to the top. I don't think I can hit Control F. Oh, I can. All right. Oh, it's going Alex Bowman. Here we go. Our first disagreement. Bowman's 41% top 10 rate on Super Speedways is slightly better than Logano's 40%. Yeah, that is slightly. And he has a strong Atlanta record, 5th, 26 12. Yeah, but did you look at Logano's? The plus 130 odds for high value. I don't think they're that great. For Bowman's consistency in pack racing compared to Logano's higher top non-20 rate. So I guess I don't agree with this at all. I think that the data set kind of stinks. Now, I think it also just doesn't want to take Logano at minus 175, although it's not saying that. It kind of is implying that with the plus 130, saying that it's close enough that you lean towards the 130. If I were a non-betting man, or a betting man, and you're just doing straight head-to-head and not considering payouts, which it is considering payouts in its analysis, Logano's going to be the chalky pick. But then again, if you're not looking at the betting odds, you may just play chalk all the way down the line, although that's probably not going to be the best strategy because anyone can wreck. Either way, it's probably leaning more on Logano probably wrecks out at a little higher of a rate, and so that's why Bowman can work. Anyway, there it is. There's their pick. I disagree. I'm glad we had a little bit of a disagreement. And that's fine, because so far I think I'm going pretty chalky. And so maybe I need to consider a little bit of what the old AI is saying. Bubba Wallace, Daniel Suarez, easy one for me. I'm going to go with the data. Daniel Suarez has been elite at Atlanta for whatever reason. And Trackhouse, for the most part, has been really strong at Atlanta. Again, for whatever reason. It's hard. When we go road courses and a team is consistently good, or we go to a specific short track and a team is consistently good, sorry if it's loud in the background. I got the HVAC running in the dungeon where I record. I apologize. But as you may or may not know, it's kind of like 100 degrees everywhere. And when it's really hot outside, you got to turn on the central cooling. And that means the dungeon fires up the old cooling unit. And so you might hear a buzz, hum, or annoying noise in the background. Sorry, this is not recorded in a professional studio. It is a free fantasy NASCAR podcast. You're welcome. Anyway, going back to the trackhouse racing, like when a team's really good at a specific track, or like Hendrick at Martinsville, you get it. We understand it. We know that they know the setups, and the drivers know the setups, and they know the changes in the race course, et cetera, and you feel very strongly in your lean, or you are very compelled to play that team. You have confidence, you have conviction, all those things line up. But when it comes to super speedways, when a team is good at a specific track or track type, you don't feel that same conviction. Although in the past you kind of have. During the heyday, Dale Earnhardt Jr. was always a great super speedway race, and you could lean on the data, and you didn't really question it as much. Keselowski and Logano for a time were just, you just jammed them in. Team Penske, great at super speedways, still great at super speedways. And there was a little bit of doubt, but it just seems like today, and it's not necessarily the Gen 7 situation, but when we look at super speedway data, and we look at specific tracks, like I said with Atlanta and Suarez, let's pull up Suarez. Look, now he did finish 33rd in the spring, but look at these solid top finishes. Second, first, sixth, the fourth. And if if it was 2018, and it says saying Atlanta, it just said Super Speedway, and the name wasn't Daniel Suarez, it was Brett Keselowski, you'd say, sure, of course, and you would feel confident. But now, there seems to be much more of an asterisk, there seems to be so much more doubt, and rightfully so. He finished 33rd in the spring. It's just the way that it is. But at the end of the day, we have to have some sort of data that we're going to use. You don't have to. You can just make random picks, and that's going to be completely fine. And a lot of people will in their in-season challenge brackets, especially if we get a lot of normies and squares, although I would say that we're all marks this week. We're all squares. It's super speedway racing. It's the first ever in-season challenge. Maybe possibly pretending that we know what we're doing is the wrong strategy. And I think that is a good argument for what we're doing here. Instead of going deep into data and analysis, we're using some data, but we're also admitting that, yeah, but you look, William Byron, hey, he finished 9th last fall, and then he finished 27th. He won in 2023, and then he finished 17th. I mean, you look at William Byron's data period, he won in 2022, then finished 30th. He pretty much encapsulates what it is to race at super speedway, to predict races at super speedways. It's just the way that it goes. Maybe by looking at the data, we get a little bit better than coin toss odds, but this is where we are. And if we want to talk about racing, we want to make predictions, we got to look at something. I'm going to look at the numbers. And going back to the main point of trackhouse racing, for whatever reason, maybe you know what is the secret sauce or the secret recipe, but nonetheless, they've had good results. They found their way to the front. And so Danny Boy is my pick. I gotta believe. Now, we know Will Wallace has had a pretty good super speedway career, so I could see the AI going in a different direction based on Talladega and Daytona results. I'm leaning on Atlanta because I think it's just a little bit different. Let's see what the AI says. AI. It likes Bubba. Oh, wait, no, that's an older. So, again, if you look at the sheet, 23 pages, there's a lot of different versions that I ran through the AI, which you can have access to if you go to raceforprize.com. $24. July. Get all these sheets. Chicago, Sonoma, Dover, Indianapolis, and the RFP truck race. If you don't have the sheets already and you pay the $24 by PayPal, Venmo, or Cash App, I'll give you all the July stuff, all the stuff that I do. And then I'll also throw in this week's Atlanta and Lime Rock. Or you can just give me $10 to give you Atlanta and Lime Rock. I would suggest just get the thing. Hey, $90 the rest of the season. Just get this thing wrapped up. So, it's Bubba. Bubba Wallace has 1 Super Speedway win, 6 top 5s, 30% top 10 rate with a 9th at Atlanta in 2025. Slight edge over Suarez's 1 win and 23% top 10 rate. In the even odds matchup, Wallace's stronger Atlanta and Super Speedway stats make him the pick. I don't think his stats are that strong. But let's see. It may be looking more at an average. Suarez, I don't see it. Suarez is top, 6 or better in 5 races. He has 2 dragging him down. Unless, of course, Wallace has just been solidly consistent and hasn't wrecked at all, which I don't think is the case. Yeah, I don't see why it's leaning on Wallace in a statistical category Atlanta. I can understand it if it's looking at some of his super speedway results, although his one win was rain shortened. Been much better at Daytona. I think we all can agree that Daytona is a pretty good racetrack for Bubba Wallace. He's been fine in Atlanta. He probably has, his equipment's going to be just as good, if not better. I disagree with his analysis that he's been better at Atlanta. That doesn't seem to make any sense to me whatsoever. But it's AI doing AI things. And sometimes you just gotta lean on its crazy kookiness. I don't get that. I really don't. He has not been better at Atlanta. Their odds to win the race is the same at 29-1. And from an in-season challenge perspective, you clearly are going to take Suarez. You're going to get the 10 points, and you get a huge differential here. Going back to that, again, with Logano, you get a huge differential. So, regardless of your DraftKings betting odds for winning the race, for winning the matchup, it would be hard not to take Logano considering the 10 points. And then the, 17? I got to do math off the top of my head. Yeah, 17 points that you get as a differential here. Not really a difference between Busch and Keselowski. Nemechek, Barry, this was a little tricky because neither have been particularly great. If I had to go real quick off the top of my head, I think I would lean towards Barry just because he is in a Wood Brothers, Penske Allied Ford, which I expect to be a little bit faster. Although the Toyotas have been fine, the Legacy Motor Club is growing and gaining this season. Neither have been particularly great super speedway racers. Barry gets you the place differential. If you're looking at odds to win, Barry at 29-1 is much better than Nemechek. I'll go with the chalkier option. And just to pull up their stats real quick on the screen, let's see. Nemechek 10th in the spring, not bad. Or Bear finish. He has not been good at Atlanta. He has not been great at Talladega. He has not been great at Daytona. So you can make an argument for Nemechek. And Nemechek actually, for a time, was one of, I think he still is, if you're looking at average finish at a super speedway, doesn't have a huge amount in the Cup Series. So again, the argument for Bear is, well, he's due. Hey, not Haley. I want Nematode. Where are you at, Nematode? So if you look, remember those 2020 days? Nemechek, really solid, consistent, safe at Daytona. Remember those 2020 days? 2 8th place finishes. But of late, his statistics have started to drop. 30th or worse in the last 3 Talladega. Been okay at Atlanta. But overall, he has been very consistent. And a strong case, at least in the matchup, could be made for John Hunter Nemechek. More often than not, he is getting into the top 15, top 10. And the exact opposite is said for Josh Berry, who's not getting in the top 15 at all. Regardless, I'm going to go with Barry. That's my guy. Could be wrong. That one's a little more dicey. All right, let's go to the final analysis here for Barry. It's going Nemechek, 42% top 10 rate. That is really strong, as I mentioned, although his recent Talladega results have kind of knocked that number down. But again, that's Talladega. 10th, Atlanta 2025. Barry has no top 10s and a 60% non-top 20 rate. Nemechek at plus 150. Yeah, betting-wise, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to go with Nemechek in this spot. Plus 150, and I believe that is definitely worth a bet right there if we are believing that data actually matters. So I'm changing that. And maybe this is a way to differentiate in the actual season challenge because if you take Barry, better odds to win, it gets you that 21 minus 12 differential. But I'll take Nemechek, who is seated way higher than he should be based on the way the tournament was formatted. By the way, we're just trying to pick who's going to finish better. Data says Nemechek's going to finish better. So that's where we shall go. Elliott, Austin Dillon. Elliott, the 5 seed. Dillon, the 28 seed. Actually, feel like these seeds make a lot of sense. Dillon 66-1, Elliott 15-1, Elliott the Georgia boy, Dillon the North Kakalaki. This is in my DraftKings article. I wrote this up as the Nepo baby matchup. Although they've all had pretty good careers, still their careers wouldn't exist had they not had the lineage that they have. Boy, I'll just lean on the chalk. We know the stats. We know that Elliott has super speedway wins. Dillon has super speedway wins. They know what they're doing. It's just a matter of who wrecks, who doesn't wreck. I'll take out all things being equal. And one of the things I did write in my best bets article was that, Dillon can wreck and still win this matchup, just as long as he's not the first to wreck. We've also seen Atlanta wrecks where they're not as violent or DNFing. You can get away with a spin or a little dust up and still survive at Atlanta because the way the cars get a little bit more spread out. There still are big ones, but there are little ones. And that you can, through a series of cautions, get back on the lead lap and then through attrition, get yourself back up into the mix. But again, if we are talking about a race-ending wreck, Dillon can suffer that, as long as he just isn't the first to suffer that. And then if Dillon wins, you get the big place differential. Betting-wise, Dillon's probably a pretty good payout, too. Betting-wise, you might lean towards Dillon. I think, though, matchup-wise, I would probably... let's just do it. Let's go with Dillon. Let's see what it says. Because I know that the odds are going to be a decent little payout. And there's a legitimate shot that he can do it, and Elliott doesn't. Elliott hasn't been great in its super speedway racing. Elliott's pretty strong. Or Hendrick's pretty strong. Hey, get off my screen. Let's see. Let's see what it says about Elliott. Elliott. Okay, it is going Chase Elliott. 3 super speedway wins. 37% top 10 rate. First Atlanta in 2023. Dillon has 2 wins. 27% top 10 rate based on the data. It likes his Atlanta consistency last season. Makes him a reliable favorite despite the steep odds. So minus 220, I wouldn't go that route. I'd rather lean 160. Not surprised, it's going to go chalk, but we'll be different, and we'll take Austin Dillon. I do not disagree with where it went for that pick. Chastain, Eric Jones. Jones has been good. Chastain's been good at Atlanta. Both are maybe slightly underrated super speedway drivers. Would argue that Chastain's a little bit more volatile of a super speedway driver, which is a driver that we want to avoid in this type of matchup. Chastain hasn't been as good at Atlanta recently, but he did during the inaugural new Atlanta Super Speedway in 2022 get the 2 runner-up finishes, as I mentioned before. Trackhouse, pretty solid in this race. These are very solid numbers by Chastain, but I believe Jones may not have been as good, but has been pretty strong. I remember a couple years ago, Jones had that really amazing drive through the field. It might have been the 2022 fall race or 23 spring race where he passed on one of the final restarts, 14 cars. We have seen a decent amount of movement. As I talked about earlier, Stenhouse in stage 1 last year at Atlanta passed 21 cars. 21 in stage 1. So you can move around. You can make gains. But Jones hasn't been great of late. That's Super Speedway racing for you. He has won back in his JGR days, Super Speedway races. I'll go Chastain. I'll play the Trackhouse narrative. Let's see what the AI thinks. And it's going Jones. And actually, if you are betting, I like the Jones bet at plus 170 against a very volatile Ross Chastain at minus 235. Yeah, betting-wise, I would not bet Chastain. Bracket-wise, I think I would lean on I'll go ahead and take Jones. I'll trust the AI. It's swayed my mind a little bit here. I get a little bit of place differential. And I feel much more comfortable with betting Jones versus Chastain and getting the plus money than I do in the in-season challenge. But I don't think it's that big of a disagreement. Jones, 1 win, 5 top 5s, Now, one of the things that it might say, oh, well, come on, you got to factor in that those were JGR. I don't really think that matters. Yes, he had JGR equipment for a lot of the data that's in the set, and his Legacy Motor Club stats may not be as good. He may not have as good of a car, but I don't think that matters too much for super speedway racing. Like if this were an intermediate track and I put in that simplified, dumbed down version data, and it's like, oh, in 2019 he did this, so you can pick him, and it wouldn't necessarily know, because I limited what I didn't want it digging through the internet and finding all the data. It gets overwhelmed, and you get in the back and forth, and it takes forever to like chill out, stop looking at that stat. But if it were a regular intermediate track and it was making this prediction based on a JGR Toyota, then yeah, we would have a problem. But being at a super speedway, I don't think this is a problem. 27% top 10 rate for Chastain, 45% non-top 20 rate suggests volatility, meaning, 45% of the time, for the most part, Ross Chastain's wrecking. That makes Jones a valuable. Yeah, I really do like that Jones bet if you're making it. And I'm now feeling a little bit more confident in my bracket pick as well. Bell versus Stenhouse. Sorry, I got to do it, folks. I'm going to go Stenhouse. You know how I roll. Forever aligned or in allegiance with Ricky Stenhouse. Admitted bias right here. I've always loved him since his Xfinity Championship days. And boy, was that a terrible decision that I made and have been married to ever since. But I am clear in telling you, yeah, I'm probably not the most objective person. But being a fan of Spinmeister, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and lived through it, I can always say, yes, I'm a little biased towards him, but I can also bury the guy, talk about how terrible he is, and give you a pretty honest analysis. Some super fans can't see the flaws, but when you're a super fan of a driver that's not a super driver, those types of super fans will give you the real deal and tell you how much their driver stinks. And Spinhouse stinks, but there are times you can shine. And if there's a time you can shine at super speedways, you like the place differential. The odds to win bet's not too bad. And we're probably getting some plus money in the matchup. The Stenhouse stats. Checkers or wreckers. Bell's been pretty solid at Atlanta. Obviously he won in the spring, although you hate to see the way that race ended, although it was kind of exciting with all the restarts. You really hate to see the way the race ended if you are a Larson super fan, which I am. Looked like Larson was finally going to get that Cup Series Super Speedway win, which I don't really think matters. He's won Super Speedways and the Xfinity Series, but it would be nice to get that monkey off his back. Either way, race ended early with caution. Bell wins. Looked like Larson would have won if it wasn't for the 7 cautions before that, but hey, that's Super Speedway racing, and so there's Larson's numbers. But Bell, really good at Atlanta recently. Hard to count him out. Toyota seems to work together anymore, and they've got enough Toyotas in the field that they can work together at super speedways. But at the end of the day, I'm going to go with Stenhouse. And it's super speedway racing. As I mentioned, 21 positions gained. He has enough of a car. He knows what he is doing. Now, in a match, he's a better pick to win races than matchups, because if you're doing matchups like we just went over in the previous pick with Jones and Chastain, volatility matters. You're probably better, not necessarily thinking about upside. You're thinking about who's more likely to wreck. And without a doubt, Stenhouse is more likely to wreck than Bell. Statistically, and even just when you think of it in your head, theoretically, without really any data whatsoever, in your heart of hearts that Stenhouse is more likely to wreck, making picking Stenhouse a dumb pick in a matchup. At least not statistically probable. But maybe having that as the case, we get a decent little payout. Let's see, and the odds could change on this at any time. And I know it's going to go Bell. I know, unless the odds are really paying out well for old Stinny. So it's cool with Stenhouse, plus 150. Maybe it doesn't like the minus 205. It really likes his 4 speedway wins. 21% top 5 rate compared to Bell's single win and 14% top rate. So again, it's kind of going against the opposite of what I just said. It likes chasing the upside. The 150 odds for Stenhouse offer value in a volatile race where his proven super speedway success could shine. I get it. My argument would be that Bell maybe at the very beginning of his career wasn't as good at super speedways and has gotten a little bit better. Again, that could be my own misinterpretation or just not, just reading too much into what I kind of feel and think. So, hey, maybe it's on something. I don't mind the bet. Maybe taking the match. Actually, I don't mind it. Bet, and I don't mind taking Stenhouse at 29 minus 4. So, if you win this one, you get 10 plus 25 points. Not bad. Briscoe, Gregson. I'll go Gregson all day, taking the place differential. Odds to win, Gregson 66, Briscoe 23. Briscoe, not really a super speedway phenom. Gregson, not really either, although both have. I know Gregson's won the Xfinity Series. I'm not sure that Briscoe ever won the Xfinity Series. Maybe he won at Talladega. Gregson's clearly won those races. I put them basically even to finish wherever they finish. Let's look real quickly at some stats of late for these two drivers. Obviously Briscoe's got a little better equipment for JGR, but I don't think that matters much. Really not good numbers here at Atlanta. Oh, it's the first time I said here in this podcast. I've been doing a really good job at not saying that. Hate that it is used so often in DFS podcasts and even in writing. Gregson's been even worse. Whoa, Nelly. So you want to make the old, well, he's due argument. Gregson is definitely due. 33rd worse in 6 of 7 Atlanta races. Not bad in the last 3 at Talladega. Okay at Daytona. Not really. Yeah, there's a rough break. There's rough, Greggy. What about, let's go back to Briscoe and see. We mentioned that Briscoe's not been that great, but hasn't been that bad. So again, his Talladega numbers aren't that good. Been a little bit better at Daytona. Both are really not good super speedway racers. So they're both due. And if they're both due, I'll just go ahead and lean on chasing Gregson. I wonder what kind of odds. Wonder when the sportsbooks set the odds, if they looked at the data. Because if they did, maybe we get a good boost out of playing Gregson. So I'll go with Greggy. Oh, Greg! People still talk about that. Plus 150. Yeah, I take Gregson plus 150 against Briscoe. Briscoe's 21% top 10 rate. Atlanta finishes outperform Greg. They're going Briscoe. I'm going Gregson. Outperforms his 22% top 10 rate and weaker Atlanta results. Briscoe's edge in pack racing supports his favorite size. And I would lend. I agree there that Briscoe's going to have Toyota JGR support. Gregson front row maybe gets a little bit of Ford support, but it doesn't have as many teammates. It doesn't have as good of teammates or as strong resources available. But let's not bury Front Row Motorsports. They have put together some really fast super speedway cars of late. Todd Gilliland, Michael McDowell in previous seasons. So let's not completely downgrade the equipment Gregson will be in. Again, at the end of the day, it's just about avoiding wrecks. And Greg finish. Hope so. I'll take the 150. Where are we at next? We took Gregson. Priest, Byron, I'll take Byron. And I'm not going to go into too much analysis here. You said here again. I did. And you can also go here, racefortheprize.com. Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, $24 for the July sheets. I know that old Ken in the comments section hates when I try to make a little bit of money to pay for a Happy Meal or two for my son because he hates my son. And he said that he's never going to listen to this podcast again. But I know you're listening, Ken. Hey, Ken. I'm breaking the fourth wall. How you doing? I know you said you quit the page, but you've also said that you've quit my YouTube page 10 times, and you keep crawling back. And I keep accepting you like an abused wife. And I'm sure in the comments you'll say something negative towards me, and I'll say, hey, that's just Ken being Ken. And just like an abused wife, I let it go and accept it, move on. It's just YouTube comments, folks. You don't worry about some rando on the internet like Ken. We love you, Ken. Thanks for coming back. Hopefully this is helping you out with your in-season challenge. We'll look at Byron's stats. They've been strong. He is a past winner at this race. We've got a Hendrick car. You got to be excited about that. He did not finish well in the spring race, but before that, 2 wins, a 9th. They're up and down, as we mentioned earlier in the podcast. Look at that run at Talladega he's had lately. That's strong. Daytona, pretty strong. Yeah, there's a spell here, but look at these wins. How do you not go with William Byron? And even on top of that, speaking of on top, guess who's not going to be on top? Guess who's going to be sitting on his top? It's going to be Ryan Preece. The dude has shown a knack for flipping his car and wrecking a lot at these super speedways. I know there was a time where people really loved Preece as a super speedway driver. They'd say, oh, he's great, he's underrated. And I would make 2 arguments that he wasn't great. He was getting top 10 finishes, but he wasn't winning super speedway races. He was fine. He had a solid run there. And I would lend that more to being the JTG Daughtery, now, what is it, Hayek Racing, approach of, we had seen like AJ Allmendinger and other drivers for that team in the past, just stay in the 20s, keep it clean, survive to the end, don't really push, don't really try to win, get a safe finish. And they did that consistently, Preece, AJ, and the likes, which was good, it's not great, made it tough to play in fantasy NASCAR. And then he switches teams, his motivation changed a little bit, the JTG approach changed a little bit, he became more aggressive, and he wrecked a lot. Just the way it is. I'm not even going to look at the stats. You can close your eyes and see Ryan Preece with his eyes closed. When he got in that wreck and his eyes all swelled up and he couldn't open his eyes. You can see him barrel rolling through the infield. Put the stats on the spreadsheet. I don't. I'm going to use the theater of imagination. Close your eyes right now. Think of Ryan Preece, super speedway racing recently. And you can see his car barrel rolling across the grass. And you could probably see multiple occasions of that. I don't need to pick him. I'll take Byron. Blaney Hocevar, I guess you can make an argument for Hocevar, but Blaney's stats, the super speedways are too strong. I don't need to put those on the screen. You know what they are. They're overwhelming. Hocevar's on a hot roll. If you want to differentiate from the field, this would be the place to go. I am really surprised he is 26-1. But then again, that tells you how well this guy is doing of late. But he hasn't really proven anything at a super speedway. Blaney's 9-1. Not a bet I want to make. This is not a bet I want to make. Actually, we need to go see what it said about Byron and Preece. But anyway, it's going to be Blaney. Let's go back to Byron. It's got to go Byron. And the reason I had to look at it, it's got to go Byron, right? So let's look at the final analysis. Yeah, it's Byron. And it's going to tell you stats on the screen. Pretty clear. We'll go Blaney. It's going to be Blaney. These are neither are bets that I want to make. Byron at minus 210, not worth it. I would not chase that with Preece. I would not chase that with Hocevar. Maybe you could consider it. Plus 1 is not bad, but you are going against Ryan Blaney, who, great super speedway stats, we know. Just hard to argue that. And Blaney's running awesome this year. No reason for me to go in a different direction. Larson, Reddick. I'll take Larson. I've already put Larson's stats on the screen. You know the volatility there. Reddick, hey, there's your volatility. 2 DNFs, 2 Talladegas, then 2 top 10s. What's he been doing in Atlanta? Not been a particularly strong race. Again, Kyle Larson, super fan. Sorry, not sorry. Strong at Talladega. He's been running better of late. I mean, the only argument that I can make, statistically, looking at these races, super speedways, is it's just bone up on tuna has not been on his side. He just hasn't had a lot of luck. Bon woot! That's a Haitian Creole for safe trip. That's what we're rooting for Kyle Larson. Bon woot! You need a safe trip. Just get this thing home. Betting wise, I'm not really interested in either, but for the matchup, obviously, I'm taking Young Money. What are we getting? in terms of AI. And AI says, I want the initial, take me to the final analysis, the simplified data. It's going Reddick at plus 120. That's fine. Super Speedway win. Yes, he does. 28% top 10 rates. Strong Atlanta finishes in 25. Larson, comparable top 10 rate, but his DNF, his non-top 20 is pretty bad, and that makes him vulnerable. And I think that is a legit reason to play Reddick. As I mentioned before, the only data that I can cite is it just seems like Larson has bad luck. Now, my approach to that is he's had bad luck, but when you have bad luck, eventually it turns around. But that's really not the case. Like, if you know, I mean, just step back and forget about racing. Think about life. People who have bad luck and hard times. Well, do things just turn around and they start getting lucky? Or does it pretty much ruin their life? And yeah, I mean, that's just the way that luck works. It doesn't mean, oh, yeah, bad luck, but you're going to have good luck soon. No, it doesn't even out. A lot of times, if you're unlucky, it just continues. It compounds. And if you are lucky, then sometimes you just keep going up and up and up. And I think we can apply the same concept to racing of this idea that I have, which is probably, completely false and incorrect, that, well, if you have bad luck, eventually it's going to turn around with super speedways. That doesn't really have to be the case at all. And some drivers are just always winning super speedways and just continue to have good luck. So probably the better stance of is Larson hasn't been good. Why would he be good? Well, because he's a good racer, but that doesn't really matter at a super speedway. Yeah, fanboy for Young Money with 3 dirt racing shirts, tie-dye, 2 of them. Sorry, you know where I stand. I'm going to go Larson. You probably would be better off going with Reddick, taking the place differential in the challenge, also even the betting, but I don't think that's a great betting matchup. McDowell, Allmendinger, I think this is a toss-up. If we look at their betting odds, pretty similar to win the race. I imagine the matchup is not very much different. I'll take AJ in the safe. Actually, let's look at the data and see who's been slightly better at Atlanta of late. Again, the pretty similar Atlanta odds. We know that AJ, pretty strong run in the Xfinity series for Colleague. But McDowell's always been a good road course racer, going back to his ancient front row days. And you can see that in the Fantasy NASCAR spreadsheet brought to you by RaceForThePrize.com. Always been a little bit better of a Daytona driver, which if I had to say which super speedway correlates a little bit better with Atlanta, I would argue that it's Daytona, which has a slightly tighter racetrack, but I don't really think you need to go that deep into it. You can look at all the numbers however you want. I'm going to go AJ. I don't think you can go wrong either way. Not having the betting odds in front of me, if one was getting a little bit more juice, a little bit more plus money, I would clearly go with that option because I think that they're pretty even. I'll be interested to see, or as people often say on TV now, I'm curious to see. Hear people say that a lot. I don't remember using the word curious that much 5 years ago, but nowadays I hear people saying the word curious all the time. God, everyone's so curious. Curious George's out there. I'm curious to see McDowell minus 170. No way. I take AJ at plus 125. And I'm surprised. It's going McDowell. He does have that Daytona 500 win, 6 top 5s, as we mentioned, strong front row success. Allmendinger, no wins. Yeah, but again, it's not weighing in a lot of his success in the Xfinity Series. 39% top 10 rate's pretty strong. I think if it had a little bit more analysis of AJ, it would probably go that route. Being that I limited the data that I inputted, probably pushed it, compelled it more towards McDowell. But betting-wise, I would not take McDowell minus 170. And I would be glad to get the plus 125 with AJ. I really feel like that number is going to change. But I'm going AJ there. I'll take AJ straight heads up here, too, in the bracket. Take the place differential. Like that a lot. Geez, we still got more matchups to go. Gibbs versus Haley. I'll take Haley. 81 to 1 to win. That's a bet that I would not mind making. We know that Haley, yes, his Cup Series win at Daytona is goofy, but sure, they're all goofy though. Yeah, it's extreme lightning caused goofiness, But nonetheless, he survived in the race, played it out, and won, which is pretty much what anyone does. Survive to the end, play it out, and win. Sure, he didn't beat someone to the checkered flag, but nonetheless, he got a win. And if that were his only Super Speedway win, then yeah, I would say downgrade it. But seeing what he did in the Xfinity Series and the calling car Super Speedways, then I don't downgrade that win as much. 86-1, I like that. Haley plays differential, knows what he's doing. Spire Chevys have been fast. They know what they're doing at the Super Speedways. I want to go Haley, and I hope that the field and the people playing at home see the 6 seed and think that the seeding means something, or see Gibbs' name and the JGR, and that Gibbs carries a lot of ownership. That's a great place to differentiate, and I hope that we get a good juiced up number. I would say that the book's probably a little bit sharper. They are not. Plus 155. I like that bet. Like it a lot. Did it not make a... Here we go. Yep, plus 155. The date is there. Haley's got a win. 22% top 10 rate. Solid at Atlanta. Edges out Gibbs. Top 10 rate. Also kind of solid at Atlanta. I think Gibbs does have a Xfinity win. If you want to get in a little bit of credit for that. But Haley's got a bunch of Xfinity wins. Let's just see the numbers on the screen real quick for Jerome Gibbo. Where's Gibbsy? Or Tyrone? Jerome, Tyrone, whatever. Give him a call. 17-10-9, not bad. Where's Hail Mary? Not bad. Not bad at Talladega. Kind of rough spell here at Daytona. But Gibby's a little bit better, but not great. Getting that plus money, you take it. Almost there, folks. 2 more to go. Zane Smith, Austin Cindric. We'll take Austin Cindric. Very consistent Super Speedway driver. Chalky player. Smith, 81-1. Not a bad driver. Not bad if you're just throwing in a buck trying to win more. But if we're going matchup head-to-head, Cindric, Daytona 500 winner recently, and was really in a strong contention in the Atlanta spring race. Stats don't lie. Let's pull up Cindric. I'm sure it's going to go Cindy. Send it, Cindric. Let's go with the final analysis. And it is not a bet I'd want to make it minus 250. But his stats, 2 wins, 43% top 10 rate. That's really strong. Consistent in Atlanta, 10th, 4th, 12th. And Smith, 50% non-top 20. Not a large data set for Zane Smith. Either way, though, in the data set that we have, he's not finishing these races. Could get better someday. May just move or improve incrementally. Either way, Cindric was always good. Team Penske at the Xfinity, Super Speedways, and in the Cup Series. Hard to bet against a Penske car in this spot. And then our final pick, Buescher versus Gilly. Buescher's just safe and consistent. We'll stick with Buescher. And let's see what it says. I like Gilly a lot, too. I don't mind Front Row Motorsports. And there's place differential to chase. End of the day, I just think Buescher's been just very consistent. Not a bet I would make it minus 205. But as you can see on the screen, the stats back up Buescher. Thanks for joining me here on the Fantasy NASCAR podcast. Hope you had fun. Your in-season challenge, hopefully later this week, we can go through the whole bracket. We'll just pick up with the next video talking about our predicted road courses. You can't really jam all that into one podcast because we're doing a completely different track. It'd be kind of wild. But the next one, because we have back-to-back road courses, we can kind of jam into one. We can do Chicago and Sonoma together and move on from there. Get a pretty good idea of building an entire bracket. But for now, just round 1. You play at NASCAR.com. You can also make the sportsbook bets. You can also play Fantasy NASCAR. And to help you out with all that, you can go to... Why am I printing this? My bad. You can go to racefortheprize.com. Get that July sheet. I really appreciate you guys. Ken, here it is. I know you hate it. You can like or subscribe, share. That's the only time I'll say it. But apparently, if you say it just once, it drives people crazy. I'm only saying it at the very end when most of you have turned this thing off. I didn't say it 20 times during the beginning, which I know myself. Sometimes it drives you crazy on these podcasts when they do that. I did it at the end, which is terrible marketing, terrible for sales, Terrible all around. But I appreciate you, and that's why I bury it at the end. Really just trying to give you information, and hopefully you appreciate what I do. Thanks, guys. Bon woot. That's how we'll start ending this. Why is he speaking Haitian Creole? Well, because my moonlighting gig right now with another job to make ends meet is working OPD at Walmart, online pickup and delivery. And guess who? In Lima, Ohio. That's Lima, Ohio. Guess who most of your drivers are in Lima, Ohio? They are Haitian immigrants. Yeah, you may have seen in the news a thing about the Biden administration dropped off a lot of Haitians into Ohio. Yeah, that wasn't fake news. That is real. Lima is very much populated by Haitian immigrants. And their profession is they're people delivering your Walmart groceries. I do the Walmart end, and then I hand it off to them, and they're the ones that drive it to you. And so in our exchanges, it's been beneficial to me to learn a little Haitian Creole so that we can communicate with each other. So, bonsoir, bon woot. Learning all these little small phrases. Mi parle ti Creole. Mi apprende Creole. Anyway, have a safe trip is what I'll end you with. And actually, what it is Shajay Bon Woot. It is a fun language to speak. I give it to them. They have a fun, if not broken, Creole French. But so nice say, Shajay Bon Woot. You're loaded up. Have a safe trip, my friends. So there you go. That's how we'll end these moving forward. Shajay Bon Woot.